The chair recognizes the honourable member for St. Anne's.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we cannot let the public be lied to any longer. Now, I'm going to, I know a lot of these members of the government side probably have no fishing heritage. Maybe the gentleman leaving from North Andros or from North Abaco. But for the rest of them, they obviously don't understand. Listen, I'm not going to lecture you all again. Don't interrupt me. The Speaker governs the House. If the Speaker wants to recognize someone standing while I'm standing, that's up to the Speaker.
For Yamakuro.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The member used the word in his opening statement of lying, and I think the member knows that that's unparliamentary language unless everybody is permitted to use that, so I would ask him to withdraw and use an alternative word. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's not proper, and I'm going to bring an end to the lying that's been going on in this honourable House. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many of these members of the government side obviously have no fishing background. They don't realize that a 12% VAT, if you look at it as a net
recognize the honourable member for
on everything.
Mr. Deputy, I don't know if we must get wary of good doing or right doing, but every time the member breaches the rules, I think there's a duty for myself and others in this House to bring attention to it as the rules suggest, and have the member act accordingly. The member is doubling down on his disrespect for the rules and his unparliamentary language. And if that's the road we're going to go down, that's a very dangerous road because, everyone then can do it. I'd ask that the member withdraw, use an alternative word, something synonymous and more parliamentarian-like, and then we can move on. Thank you.
We'll have that stricken from the record. The chair recognizes the honourable member for St. Anne's.
Okay, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the PLP would have the public believe. We good so far? The PLP would have the public believe that they reduced the value-added tax burden on the Bahamian public. And that's because they want you to look at 10% versus 12%. They don't want you to look at the fact that the net cast under the 12% F&M last administration was much smaller than the PLP 10% net that was cast. Now, I've sat down and listened to Freetown during this debate, sit from his seat and say, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. Honestly, you will have an opportunity, to close. But if you want to look, and you should look, I don't know how many of you have looked, probably fewer of you have looked at this book than you've ever been handlining in your life. Yep. But if you have looked at this book, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you'll see that it has a revenue summary. This one for the current debate is on page 5. And the revenue summary for value-added tax has a approved forecast, the estimated figure of $1,515,619,124.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the amount of money they're expecting to collect by VAT and taxes.
That's right.
Yes, yes. They would like you to believe that 10% on everything is better for the Bahamian people than 12% on a little bit is for the Bahamian people. When in reality, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I've looked at the budget performance reports, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2018. The 2018 budget, that was the budget that was debated in June of 2018. 2018 in May, the F&M said they were going to have that at 12%. In 2018, the budget came out, so it's now at 12%. That's what they're forecasting in 2018. And the figure was less. So even at 12%, the F&M expected that they would be collecting less in tax than the PLP has been collecting for the last number of years that they came in. I'm going to just go over it now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and then you can tell me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if the PLP has been telling the truth or if they've been, what's the opposite of truth?
Lie.
Lie. Well done, class. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2018, the amount of VAT that was to be collected off the backs of the Bahamian people was $1,061,911,862. Okay? So $1,061,000,000. In 2019, it was $1,100,156,382. Okay? And then when the PLP comes in with their wide net, you know, taxing you on everything. From tampons to baby formula, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it went up. It went up almost by $500 million more. The PLP has made the Bahamian people pay almost $500 million more than the F&M ever did. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2024, it went up again, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It was $1,515,619,124.
Yes.
The PLP has taxed the Bahamian people on an annual basis since they came into office almost $500 million more just on VAT alone.
You ain't got the rest yet.
Dry them crying eyes.
That's right.
You cannot dry any crying eyes when you're taxing the people $500 million more than the F&M ever did. That's your legacy.
That's right.
That's your legacy.
That's right.
And that's your legacy.
That's right.
So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let's not accept that the PLP has been telling us the truth. Let's accept that they have been telling us
Lie.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Now, I don't want to hear from Minister of Sports and Culture during my contribution. I want to see the gold medals. Unless you can produce the gold medals from the Olympics, then let's not have any interruption. Let's have peace here on earth. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, since nobody is challenging me on that, I'm going to, for the time being, put down my books. You know, they want you to bring your books. Yeah. If you don't have it at the table, they want you to withdraw it. Well, guess what? It's been tabled, and none of you all have looked because none of you all knew the truth. You have taxed the Bahamian people $500 million more a year than the F&M ever did. Than the F&M ever did.
The chair recognizes the
That's your
honourable member for
legacy.
Freetown.
Your legacy.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, while I will address the lack of understanding of tax, law, and policy, because I didn't teach him that part, the point of order is that he asserts that we haven't read this book. And if I were using unparliamentary language, I would say that might be a lie, but I won't use that. I would simply say he cannot know what I have done, what any of these persons have done. And so he is misleading the House by seeking to speak to something factually that he knows nothing about. I'll address his error in logic when I make my presentation.
Thank you, honourable member.
Keep going.
Okay. Errors in logic. Here we go. Here we go with errors in logic. So the member for Freetown has interrupted his junior to tell me to assert, without even doing a survey of his own members that are in the House of Assembly now. He's not even asked them if they've read the 120-page book that's been taped. What kind of team has I in it? There is no I in team, Freetown. There is no I in team. Boy, oh boy, that's like a golden yoke. That's another golden joke. Tilapia. So, you know, thank you. That's a good segue. He wants to talk about what's been waived. Now, let me tell you, Bahamian people, my constituents, the constituents all the way down in Michael. Michael, excellent contribution yesterday. God bless you for bringing the truth about the lack of service and lack of attention to your constituency. So the PLP,
know the feeling.
the PLP wants to tell you that they have reduced fat, but if you look at 5% on something that had nothing on it before, is that the truth or is that a?
If it was using on
That's the lambs of God.
Lying.
I didn't say it. I said lambs of God. Y'all got the point. But let me tell you what's in their list. I don't know where they got this list from. This list must be straight from. I'm not going to say where it's from because Tall Pines would jump up if he were here in the house and tell me, "Boy, you can't say that. You can't. I mean, honestly, y'all love to tell me what I can't say. You see the smoke talks. Now, let me tell you what they got on this list for the Bahamian people. Bahamian people, you get to pay 5%. You get to pay 5%, and this is no joke, on meat of horses, asses, mules, or heinies. I ain't even sure what a heinie is that they're talking about here. I ain't even sure what a heinie is that they're talking about here. And let me tell you, they give you options. They give you options to eat your meat of horse. They give you option to eat your meat of asses. They say they give it to you. You could have it either chilled or frozen. Sir, how do you want to eat your meat of asses? That's what the PLP thinks to the Bahamian people. Come on. God save this government. Oh, here we go with the whole logic point again from the seat. Now let me continue. So when you finish eating your meat of asses, this government says you can then partake in the meat of whales. Whales. They got whales on this list. Not only did they not look at the expenditure book, they didn't look at this list that came from God knows where, Timbuktu, and I have an idea of what they're trying to give you 5% on.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
While this is all very amusing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I believe that making fun of the Bahamian people never carries you far, but St. Anne's needs to stop asserting what we have not done, and I will always rise, because it only takes one person to have done it to falsify his assertion. See, falsify is another word for lie, you see. Misrepresentation is another word for lie. To falsify the assertion that nobody has read it.
Thank you, honorable member.
If you're going to use another word for lie, I'm going to use the word lie. I mean, that's a word. Word is the word. It's not a foul word. Okay? So Freetown is saying that he knows his government is trying to entice the Bahamian people with 5% on the meat of asses, on the meat of mules. He is proud that he read that and has not had his cabinet move to amend that. In addition, when you finish eating meat of horses, Bahamian people, you can pay 5% on the meat of whales, the meat of dolphins and porpoises, of manatees and dugongs, of seals, sea lions, and walruses. What? You know, WTF if you was using WhatsApp and trying to abbreviate, what is going on with this list? Y'all have seriously stood in front of the Bahamian public and said we're bringing VAT down to 5% on the meat of asses and the meat of walruses. Yes, Tall Pines got chicken drumsticks thrown in there too. But I mean, honestly, this is what this PLP administration has. Everyone has seen it according to Tall Pines, or maybe not everybody, but at least the team of I have seen it, yeah. The team of Freetown. Guess what? It goes on. They got dogfish and other sharks. It's illegal to catch sharks in here, but now the government is encouraging you to import it at 5% and you can sell it. Don't break up no law in this country. And then what else? Then we got shark fins. Really? Come on. Come on. Who put this together? You know that it's illegal to have shark fins and shark fin fish in this country. Just admit it. Most, but definitely Freetown didn't see that. You saying, Freetown, that you saw shark fins, walrus meat, and meat of asses? My God. My God. My God. Now look. Watch. I can put the mic close so you can hear the thunder when this drop. This is the weight. Watch this. That's a heavy walrus in there. That's the meat of some heavy asses. That's the meat of some heavy walruses in there. All right? That's your bill. Watch. Listen to the walrus. Boy, Bahamas, we getting walrus meat. Whee! That's a good PLP government. That's the good PLP government. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know, I wanted to get into this a bit more. There was a lot of things that had been said by members of the government side that I didn't agree with. I thought it was interesting that the member for Elizabeth, Minister of Energy, kind of, you know, went from tiptoe to tiptoe, letting you know something good was happening. 62% of BPL customers paid under $125. Now, how many of those customers do not have electricity in their homes right now because they've been disconnected? Did y'all hear how many? I didn't hear that. Do you know that persons who have been disconnected are still customers of BPL and would be in that calculation? That's just a little bit. Oh, hold on. Freetown is going to address that as well. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that y'all didn't factor it in. You can't change the factor now that you recognize it's ridiculous. Honestly, y'all were bragging about people being disconnected. That's the way I see it. That's the way St. Anne sees it. The good member for St. Anne's, y'all were boasting that there were people disconnected, and that brought the $125 braggadocious amount down. You did well. I mean, it's not your ministry, so maybe you shouldn't be so bold as to tell me no, sir. But there was during the Christmas period a $100 offering, encouraging persons whose BPL supply was disconnected to bring in $100 and they'd reconnect you. Now, if I had a $900 outstanding bill and I put $100 on that, come January, February, my electricity is off again. All right? So let's not think the Bahamian public is ignorant.
They wouldn't even turn it on.
The Bahamian public is not ignorant, and they're not falling for the tippy-toe tales coming from the government side on this poor mid-year budget report.
Yes.
Then we had the member for South and Central Abaco. Now, if you know the member for South and Central Abaco, this is how he always gives his contribution. Now, people of Central and South Abaco, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you. He's always talking to the camera, Mr. Deputy Speaker. He's not really paying attention or talking to the people in the House. And that's good. That's good. Some people need to have that extra focus. But he went ahead and claimed that, listen to this, the capital of the Bahamas, where we have the most marinas. Don't mind that Nassau, New Providence marinas are down in occupancy, which is a reflection of the yachting industry. Don't mind that because they were up in all the family islands. That's a lie. Can I say lie? Are we past that now? Are we grown up enough that I could say lie? What is it? What's the word? What's the word that you will remain in your seat for? Falsification of the truth. A falsification. That's a falsification of the truth. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Abaco and Abaco only saw good numbers last year, except for in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, marina bookings, yachting in Abaco in the fourth quarter was down. It was good the rest of the year. But in Nassau, it was down. That was recognized by the member for Central and South Abaco. Also in Eleuthera and Exuma, the marinas reported that their bookings were down 40% last year as well. Is that good? Is it good to end your annual business year and realize that your business is 40% less than it was before? That's not good. That's not good, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, what's going on is that the Bahamas Tourism Office, which the member for South and Central Abaco is affiliated with, has entered into a brokerage agreement with Northrop & Johnson, and that has resulted in some brokerage entities being fed up after the increased fees in our waters they are beginning to boycott sending charters to our country. Let's not be blind and have this continue into the next year, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I've stated what I've stated there because there needs to be correction on the record. Now, how many of you here were here last night, towards the end? Those that hang on the longest. We had the privilege of listening to the member for Mount Moriah give his contribution, and boy, he came out punching. I think he sent about 3 or 4 reminders to his WhatsApp members that he was about to speak. And when he did speak, he came out punching. He was punching, he was delivering. He had members of the backbench, he had members of the government side rallying with him. But the man didn't last the 30 minutes. You know, if you ever studied the greatest Muhammad Ali, you would know that you let your opponent exhaust himself. And when he can't finish that 30 minutes, you finish him off. Muhammad Ali, that became known as the rope-a-dope, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So what happened with Mount Moriah last night, not being able to finish the 30 minutes despite punching hard at the beginning, reminded me of the rumble in the jungle. The rumble in the jungle. Now, then we had the member for Pine Ridge. And she stuck on this Afro-Caribbean marketplace. And for some reason, she thought it necessary to dig the knife into her former employer, the Port Authority. And she said, you know, despite us having the miracle man as prime minister, those weren't her words, I'm just describing the prime minister. Despite our having the miracle man as the prime minister, Grand Bahama Port Authority hasn't waived $1.5 million in maintenance fees. Wow! The government isn't waiving real property taxes either, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You enter into a transaction, you have a plan for what you're going to do. You know that there's going to be costs involved. You do the transaction, you pay the costs. You don't stand up in the House of Assembly and call out a private entity and tell them that they're holding things up when you don't even have the money to do the project to begin with. But wait, maybe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they do have the money now because they're about to give us a resolution through this honorable House for a $300 million loan from AfriXM Bank. Now, AfriXM Bank, we had the Afri conference here last year, and you'll remember that despite our best efforts, they decided they weren't going to set up their office in the Bahamas. They were going to go down to Barbados, down south. They rejected us as the location for the head office, which is a shame because we don't have Royal Bank here, we don't have Scotia Bank here, and we don't have First Caribbean Bank here in the Bahamas. And despite our best efforts, they said we're going to go with Barbados and Mia Motley. But maybe that $300 million is now going to be the money that'll be used to set up the Afro-Caribbean marketplace in Grand Bahama. And if so, that's all good. That'll be interesting to see if it works out. But in the end, we thought we were negotiating, or at least the country had the concept we were negotiating for a Afro-Caribbean marketplace. But we ended up taking what we were told to take, and that is some $300 million of future debt, which we understand is just a precautionary loan for the time being. So why is it that we're taking it? Is it because the people we want to do business with told us we got to take it and we're going to saddle future generations with it? That's how it seems to me. That's how it may seem to many. Then we also have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a situation going on with cybersecurity. Now, we heard this mid-year budget report brag about tourism numbers, brag about VAT. We already know VAT's getting paid by the Bahamian people, and they're collecting $500 million more than the F&M ever thought necessary to collect from the Bahamian people. So what else do we have besides increased? What else do we have besides increased tourism numbers, which is down to cruise passengers? We also heard about cybersecurity, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and how we're going to invest, I think, millions into cybersecurity. I mean, was that really newsworthy, Mr. Deputy Speaker? I don't think that it was necessarily newsworthy. Of course, if you're going to put everything online, you're going to need to make sure you're protecting everything online. So to me, what that tells me is there's some sort of contract coming up for a friend, family, or lover, Mr. Deputy Speaker, under the cybersecurity issue. Now, that cybersecurity issue raised a concern for me because as we heard about that in the movers communication, the movers presentation, we also got news that public service had an issue with their software program that same day, and that a lot of the files dealing with promotions were not getting into that system. Now, this is a system with the public service that deals with the management that couldn't get processed yesterday. Apparently, before that contract was issued out, they were told that the program likely would have a lot of issues and it wasn't the right program to select. However, that program was selected, and it makes me wonder which family, friend, or lover is going to be seeing something from that. And then finally, we had the Minister of Energy, also the Minister for Transport, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who told us 3 years after the contract was given to Digisoft, which is responsible for managing the ports in the Bahamas, 3 years after the contract was given to Digisoft, they were now ready to roll out the program for testing. So this should have been in place in 2021. They got $3.8 million under the contract to make sure it got rolled out. And they were to get $3.8 million every year since. 3 years later, it's not been used once, and we're just hearing that the rollout is ready for review. Now, if you believe that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, then unlike me, you don't believe that at times the PLP does not tell the truth, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, those three instances are examples of the PLP government's lack of will to do the right thing for the country first. Contracts get issued out for individuals, and the country suffers, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This government, PLP government, has a grabalicious way to it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that a lady recently asked me if I thought they had gunkovitis. I didn't know what gunkovitis was, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but apparently the lady said that's where somebody can't resist the gunk of a sweet deal. So something that we in this country otherwise attribute to the PLP as their all-for-me baby culture is also known to others as gunkovitis. All right? Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, some examples that I thought of gunkovitis worth sharing were this mooring lease deal with Bahamas Mooring Limited. Now, there was a document that circulated. You know that this administration loves to keep things away from the public's eye. There's been a number of sealed documents. I listen to Freetown and I say he's like a pleased father. You know, he's like a pleased father figure to me. He's picking at me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but as a honorable son, I'm going to temper my response, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because I still know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that if this good father figure wanted to, he could probably make me regret it. But for the time being, I just want to temper us both. I only have 5 minutes left, unless I get an extra 10 minutes, like the member for Fort Charlotte got, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 10 minutes would be lovely. But we have seen this lease, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and it's a lease that gave Bahamas Mooring Limited rights to install and operate mooring services in the Exuma or elsewhere in the Bahamas. I mean, they were out of the gate. They were getting grabalicious. Exuma wasn't even enough. They wanted elsewhere in the Bahamas too. That's grabalicious. That's gunkovitis, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Can't resist the gunk of that sweet deal. They just went overboard. They went overboard so much that there was outrage from the public. The public was outraged because there was 4,165.13 acres of seabed being given by this lease to this entity. to this entity for 21 years, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, this entity was meant to put in a type of buoy, a helical anchor, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that would have gone down into the seabed. Yet, even though they went ahead, and I'll get to it, even though they went ahead without all the necessary approvals, they started not dropping these helical anchors in, but they started dropping regular heavy-duty anchors onto the seabed, not even into the seabed, tying a buoy to it and getting ready to collect their millions, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now get this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as if this wasn't an example of graboliciousness, of conjunctivitis that the Bahamian people couldn't stand, the Family Island Administrator, Mr. Christopher Adderley for the Exuma Keys, wrote to the company and he said, as such, you are hereby ordered to cease and desist all mooring installations and related activities immediately until approval has been obtained from the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, the Port Department, the Exuma Keys, District Council, and any other relevant agencies. And they copied in the Acting Director of Local Government, Donald Roll, Controller of Port Department, Byrne Wright, Director of Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, Rihanna Neely, and the Exuma Keys District Council. And if you didn't believe that it was a bad deal because you heard an F&M, and the majority of the Bahamian public telling you it's a bad deal, their own Deputy Prime Minister, their own Member of Parliament for Exuma Keys, Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Exuma and Ragged Island said in the Tribune report, it's titled, Cooper Pleased with Outcome Over Exuma Anchorage Deal. Exuma and Ragged Island MP Chester Cooper said he is pleased that the government has terminated its deal for Bahamas Moorings Limited to install moorings around the Exuma seabed, adding that he is not surprised locals expressed outrage over the project. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the grabalicious nature of the PLP government, the all-for-me baby culture, backfired on them this time. They got caught. Can you believe that they began putting moorings down in the famous harbor of Black Point, Exuma? Now, I know from my time in Exuma that one of the best things you can do, especially with all the regattas they have down in Black Point, is ride a nice 15-foot Boston whaler with a 75 or 90 horsepower in the back of that and prance. Prance all the way, not skip the waves, you prance. If you don't know how to prance, whoop, whoop, whoop. That's how you enjoy life in the islands as a young man. Instead, what this government was looking to do was allow a few family, friends, and lovers to enrich themselves worth millions and millions and put basically landmines in the way of every young Bahamian man in Black Point, Exuma. When one of them buoys catch you in your prop, you getting yucked back and you going flying forward. God bless those members of Exuma that stood up, the members of the public that stood up and had that deal canceled, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, I would like 3 more minutes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you would indulge.
2 minutes, honourable member.
From now or after 3?
From now on, honourable member.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. So this entity, Bahamas Moorings Limited, in addition to getting space for 250 moorings, they also, to my knowledge, got 2 acres of Crown land in Black Point. All right? They got 2 acres of Crown land in Black Point just like that. They've begun clear-cutting it already. You think Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, Department of Physical Planning has approved that clearing? Have you looked over at Athol Island to see the clearing that has gone on there in a protected seabed, Mr. Deputy Speaker? It's absurd. It's another example of the grabalicious conjunctivitis, all for me baby, PLP. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we got local government issues. Local government just had elections. Congratulations to all those persons that were recently elected. There was, however, an incident in Mangrove Key, South Andros, where the administrator had to be removed by members of the Department of Local Government. Lawlessness was prevailing, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It wasn't being accepted. It was reported and action was taken, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Another case where the Bahamian people stood up on behalf of what is right in this country. More of those days are coming, Mr. Deputy Speaker, after the election in 2026. What I have an issue with is that you'll find, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in this book, is that the expenditures for local government have gone down. Summary of agencies' recurrent expenditure on page 14. Department of Local Government has spent less so far than they did the previous year by $1,012,513. Likewise, the Department of Physical Planning, which is meant to have the land use plan, land use policies, meant to be one of our regulatory bodies for development in the Bahamas, ensuring that what is approved is carried out according to the approval, or what is rejected is never moves forward. The Department of Physical Planning had 50,000 less over the same time last year, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Why are these important agencies being neglected? Why is the local government receiving less money this year than it has in the past year, Mr. Deputy Speaker? That is very disrespectful. You also have issues in local government where these people are now being told they have to catch ferries. So if you live in Hopetown, or if you live in Manamore Key and you serve on that district council there, they want you to catch a ferry from the island you live on to Marsh Harbor, and then from Marsh Harbor you got to catch a taxi to the new ferry terminal to take you into Hopetown for the council meeting. The cost of that, a round trip, is going to be $700 for some, $900 for others, where all they're asking for is a small stipend for fuel so that they can drive from the island, whether it be Manawar to Hopetown. Same goes for their phones. They have mobile phones. Everybody communicates by mobile phones. Why not have a stipend for mobile phone use? The amount of time that these individuals volunteer to make sure that the family islands are running properly is immense. It's no longer compensatable by the amount they're being paid, but they don't want to go out of pocket on fuel, on ferry services, and on telephone bills, trying to improve their country for all Bahamians. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I wrap up now, I don't want the people to forget. I don't want the people to forget that the University of Bahamas student body complained that their tuition and housing stipends weren't being paid. Listen to this. Central and South Abaco on Monday got the money that was due to them at the beginning of February. Central and South Andros has not received the money from February yet. Okay, so it looks like there is a reason. It's probably a money shortage. It's too bad the minister isn't here to explain that, but we do have these phones and you can get the answer and provide it in your wrap-up. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with that, I'd like to conclude, to thank you for the consideration that you've given me with the extra time today. And I want the Bahamian people to know that even though I can't say certain words in this House because it'll offend the ears of the PLP government, I want you to know that this good member has pointed out today that the PLP has taxed you by way of VAT $500 million more on average in the last 2 years than the F&M taxed you by VAT. If you want to know who your tax man is, PLP! They are your tax man.
Taxes are the way. Taxes are the way.
Thank you, Honorable Member.